and get started tonight. Once again, it's good to have everybody coming in via the internet, and then also all those in person. Did everyone get a handout that would like a handout? All right. So a little bit of a review. Anybody remember anything we talked about last week? Remember anything we talked about last week?
Longest prayer in Scripture.
It was. The prayer that we looked at is in chapter 9. It was the longest prayer recorded in Scripture. Good stuff. It'd be a good trivia question, right? Anybody else? Well, yeah, Nehemiah influenced people to be a people of prayer. Once again, we see it laid out numerous times throughout this book of Nehemiah going to God in prayer, and he influenced the people to do the same thing. And certainly that's a challenge to us that we be people of prayer as well, and seek to influence other people along those lines. In their prayer, the people praised God for being unique. They praised Him for His power and the fact that He created everything. They remembered God's protection on them, His history with them. They had become disobedient. God judged them. He showed them mercy, and then it started the cycle over and over again. Right? That was an ongoing theme with Israel. Why were they distressed? Why were they distressed? We talked a little bit about that. They're back in the city, right? The city was populated. Restored the worship, right? Why were they still distressed? They weren't free, were they? Huh? They weren't free. They were still having to pay taxes to the Persian kings, right? They were still in captivity, though they were back in their land. They were still under rule of the Persian king, and they had to give them a portion of what they had harvested. They had to give them a portion of their cattle and their servants and their money. Certainly, we see that. Tonight, we're going to see as the people make a covenant to God. A covenant is defined as a formal binding agreement or contract. Formal binding agreement or contract. So what kind of covenants do we have today? Anybody? Marriage. That's actually the one that I put down on my paper as one of the more memorable covenants that we have. And that's the covenant of marriage. Think about it. It's a binding, legal transaction, right? We sign some paperwork, right? Most people do. Not everybody does, but most people do. You have a marriage license that you apply for, right? And then the minister signs off on that. You have witnesses. They also sign off on it. So, I mean, certainly a marriage covenant is a covenant there. Any other covenants that anybody can think of tonight?
Homeowner associations have covenants.
Oh, and those can be both a blessing and a curse.
It's always a curse.
As the covenant we're going to look at, God had with the people, it can be both a blessing and a curse. So certainly.
People take this more seriously than the marriage one.
Wow, good observation. True, it's sad but true.
It is sad
but true. So tonight we see, and I'm not going to read these first 27 verses. If you look at them, obvious reasons, I'm not going to read these first 27 verses. But Nehemiah was the first one to place his seal on the document. We see that in verse 1. The seal was a mark of a signature. This was their signature. It made sense that Nehemiah would be the first to sign it. In signing this seal, it was not a matter of pride, right? Everybody's heard the word John Hancock, right? Why don't we sign it big? One that would see it. Okay, what was Nehemiah saying? Well, I mean, he did, but he didn't. What was he saying when he signed this document, when he signed this covenant? By signing this document or putting his seal on it, Nehemiah showed humility. He